chapter 8 of Amos, verse 1. This is what the sovereign Yahweh showed me, and see a basket of summer fruit. You see here where it says Keluv Kits or Kayitz. And let me go for a moment to the concordance, chapter 8. Let me show this couple words at the very end. Here it is, Keluv, which is the basket, but it's also the cage. And that's interesting for several reasons. One of those, well, the connection with the dog, because a dog is a kelev, right? Or right here, kelev, dog. And it's also the name of Kalev, right? The other spy with Yahushua ben Nun. So this name is important for several reasons, having to do with the end times with the two witnesses. Like I said, he was one of the two spies. Plus, scripture talks about it is better a dog that is alive than a lion that is dead. Also making reference, well, that verse, amongst other things, makes reference to the fact that Satan, even though he was the most beautiful angel and so powerful and such authority that he received at the beginning, he lost everything. So it's better somebody who has been rejected by the world, as it is written, how Yahweh chooses that which the world rejects, pretty much. So it is better for a person who has been rejected from this world to rule, that being Mashiach, than for Satan, who had so much power and beauty, to do so, for he did not take care of what he had, or didn't very pretty much well, he lost sight of what he was created for and wanted to take that which belongs to the Messiah himself. So the point with this word being connected to the end, like I said, because that was the name of one of the two spies that went to Jericho and represents one of the two witnesses, and also connected with the fact that Yahweh chooses that which the world rejects, and that which the world chooses is what Yahweh rejects. So the world chose the false Messiah and the false mighty one, that being Satan, who is a lion who is roaring, looking for whom he may devour. Yet the last comes like a Kalev or a Kelev in several ways, in the sense of how people will perceive him by because of the way that this society is. So it mentioned that he saw a basket, which is a keluv, right? But there's a connection with kelev, dog. That's why it's also translated as dog cage. But it is interpreted as a basket because it is full of summer fruit, which is the word kayitz, summer or summer fruit. Kayitz comes from kutz, to spend the summer, to cut up, to pass the summer, kutz. But if you well, there's another thing. Look how the kutz is formed with a vav, and kayitz with a yud, which is kind of like the same letter but extended, right? The vav. Now, the point I'm trying to make with this word, I'm just going to go to the translator, come here and just write two of those letters, which would be the root of that word, would be ketz, which is end. Ketz. So the end of times, for instance, right? When the summer fruit will be ready. for the harvest. As we know, Yahushua came as the seed. The last comes to harvest that which Mashiach came to sow on the earth through his actions. So Ketz means the end, so it represents the end of time. That's why Kutz is to pass the summer in the sense of till the end, right? Kayitz referring to the fruit once it has come to the end, meaning the harvest, when it's ready to eat, right? So regarding summer itself, summer are these 3 months right here in orange. The one that since Babel they call Tammuz, right, which is the 4th month. Then the 5th, which is called Av, and Elul, which is the 6th. Those 3 names given in Babylon, for in the scriptures, they appear as the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th month. The year in the Hebrew, in the true calendar, starts with spring, then comes summer, then comes the fall, and then comes the winter. So summer, because of the word that is being used, at least in this verse, to refer to it, connects with the end of times. And actually, we see that in several contexts in scriptures, for instance, because of the fact that the summer is the time of heat, right? And the end times, Yahweh will destroy the world with fire. So summer is connected to the heat coming from the sun, and Yahweh will destroy this world with fire coming as the sun of righteousness to gather the fruit of the world during the harvest, which are the people that have chosen him, right? That have decided to do what Yahweh commanded. So these 3 months are the summer. And like I say, they connect with the end times and with the harvest because of the fact that it's mentioning the fruit of the summer. Now, let me go back to the book. And it says, this is what the sovereign showed me, and see a basket of summer fruit. In Hebrew, keluv kayitz. A basket, which is also connected to a kelev, right? To the dog. And then kayitz, which is connected to the end. So as the dog of the end times, or as the basket to in order for the last to fill it up with the fruits of the end times, the chosen few. So just here, just these 2 words, which is what Yahweh is showing, because it says, this is what, well, it's just a little bit backwards. Adonai, Yahweh, showed me. And behold, a basket of summer fruit. We know that Yahweh uses visions. Well, in fact, the whole of creation was made so that we could know him. He is invisible, but he made things that are visible, so that through that which is visible, we are able to know he who is invisible. So he made everything that is visible as a representation of that which is invisible. That is very important to understand first. Second, that is the reason why Yahweh uses the same method when talking to the prophets and to us through the prophets. He gives visions through the imagination of the prophet. He projects a vision in the mind of the prophet, and through the vision, he is able to understand something deeper, just like the parables that Mashiach would speak about. He would paint a picture through the story, trying to give a teaching that was deeper than the story itself or the picture, right? So the same way here, he painted a picture of a basket filled with fruit. But in Hebrew, the basket and the fruit, they both have several interpretations or connections with both the one that comes at the end to gather during the harvest the fruit, which are the few chosen, and even the many who are the grapes. So this is what the sovereign showed me, and see a basket of summer fruit. Just with that, is telling us a lot regarding the end times, those who will be chosen, etc. And he said, Amos, what do you see? I was going to mention another example when Yahweh showed a prophet a almond tree, but in Hebrew is shokeb. That same word that gives name to the almond tree is also used in Hebrew to mean to hurry up. So that is why, in the connection is because the almond tree is the first to give fruit among the trees. So it is one that it hurries to give fruit. So it represents hurrying. So Yahweh used the almond tree because of the word shokeb, because when the prophet would say, I see a shokeb, Yahweh would say, exactly, because I'm gonna hurry up to fulfill the prophecies. So similar here, Yahweh gives the vision, asks the prophet, what do you see? So Amos, what do you see? And I said, a basket of summer fruit, right? Keluv kayitz. And Yahweh said to me, the end has come upon my people Israel. No longer do I pardon them. You see, and I thank Yahweh, right? He always confirms, because in this explanation that Yahweh gives to him, he's pretty much giving the answer for the image, right? So Yahweh gives an image, and you're supposed to understand the message through the image. He sees a basket of fruit, a basket of summer fruit, and Yahweh said to me, the end has come. What? But it's a basket of summer fruit. What are you talking about, right? Most people would say that, like, it's a basket of fruit. What are you talking about the end? And we see here that Yahweh says, Vayomer Yahweh Eli says Ba Hakates. So you see right here, it has come, the end. Kates. So the prophet and the Hebrew understands it because it says Kaitz to understand the Kates. So since he saw a basket, Yahweh is saying, yeah, because the end has come, and has come already because the fruit are already in it. Plus, remember what I said, how Keluv connects with Kalev, and Kalev represents the one that is coming. So also, just to say one more thing, the last, remember, it is the second manifestation of Yahweh on this earth, and Yahweh came already as a son. Now he's coming as a father. And it's interesting that the word ba, which is came, could be turned around and be av, which is father, right? Who comes at the end. But anyways, the end has come to my people. So Israel, no longer do I pardon them. Look at this. This is another connection. Lo osif. Lo osif. Lo osif. No, no longer, pretty much would be the word, even with this one right here. Lo osif od avorlo. But this is the word that I find also interesting to see it in this verse, because in just a second. So it is osif. You see, well, in this case, translated as I will add, but since it has a no in the front, is I won't add, right? Pretty much time to the pardon. But this word right here, if I separate this aleph, which is the one for to conjugate it as first person speaking. So I'll separate it for now. It's also the first letter of the alphabet, so it represents Yahushua the first. But now he's coming as, if I take this Yud and put it right here, let me see just a second, because, oh my bad, I did it wrong. This Vav was right here. We have Yosef. So they both, the name Yosef and the word that we see here, as you can see, they have the same root. Yosef means he will add. That's why we just saw, I will add, when you add the Aleph, right? So I find it interesting because, as we know, the last is a descendant of Joseph, who comes as a Caleb to gather the fruit during the harvest in the end. And he is added to Mashiach, who is the first. And once the last, who comes from Joseph, is added to Yahushua the first, then Yahweh will no longer pardon, because he will close the door of mercy, right? During the death of the two witnesses, one of whom is a descendant of Joseph, who becomes one with the Aleph, who is Yahushua. But also remember that the Aleph is an ox. The last, since he comes from Joseph, is called the ox. That's why he is the ox that is sacrificed on Yom Kippur. So we could see it as the ox that comes from Joseph. And because of his death, Yahweh will no longer pardon, etc., etc. So the end has come. So the end, because of the summer fruit. Upon my people Israel, no longer do I pardon them. And the songs of the Hekal, which is the temple, shall be wailing in that day, declares the sovereign Yahweh. Many dead bodies everywhere, thrown into any place. Hush. And the songs of the Hekal shall be wailing in that day, declares the sovereign Yahweh. Many dead bodies everywhere, thrown into any place. Depends on which time we speak about, right? Because during the war of Har-Megiddo, there will be a lot of dead bodies everywhere, mainly in Har-Megiddo, of course. But before that, when the beast goes for 30 days, as Hosea 5:7 declares, and kills everybody who doesn't take the mark of the beast, during those 30 days, he will kill the many, who are the grapes of Revelation 14. And remember that scripture says that the blood of those people will reach the horses' bridles. Pretty much, there will be a river of blood. So here, in a way, we could see that, and it actually fits, because he was talking about a basket of summer fruit, right? The harvest, picking up fruit. And remember that the many are fruits, represented by fruits, the grapes, thrown into any place. Hush. Hear this, you who are swallowing up the needy, to do away with the poor of the land. Right? We see that a lot nowadays, sadly. The whole government, the whole system is working against the poor. Hear this, you who are swallowing up the needy, to do away with the poor of the land. Like I said, the system itself is doing that now to the world. It's making the world poor. Making the breach between the rich and the poor bigger. So Then he says, saying, when does the new month pass so that we sell grain, and the Shabbat so that we trade our wheat, to make the ephah small and the shekel large, and to falsify the scales of the seed, or buy the seed. This is interesting because Yahweh has been telling us a lot about this lately, about the shortage of food that is coming, about hunger, about, which is pretty much the same here. And like I read yesterday, I'm going to have to do it again, as we see in Revelation 6. And it says on verse 5, and when he opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, come and see. When it comes to, at least how it seems so far from what I have read in the book of Revelation, the two first seals would be opened during the first year of the last 7. The third and fourth would be opened during the second year of the last 7. They are already saying a lot about shortage of food and about the economy coming down. And it has been happening for a while, slowly, but it will come a time when it will be very drastic. And like I'm saying, if the second year is going to be the one for the third seal, right at the beginning of the year, so but still, second year of the last 7 would be the one of hunger, and they're already talking about that for a while. That means we are really, really close. And the fact that Yahweh has been putting in every single chapter that we have read in the last month, for instance, most likely, well, around that, kind of tells us something. In fact, we are having a certain plans put in motion over here. Hopefully, Yahweh helps us to prosper in that sense and be able to finish it. And we might need volunteers to make it work and to be what we want it to be. I'm kind of gonna wait on the details because I want to have something set up, but we are hoping to have a place where if anybody like from the congregation around the world would like to come to Costa Rica, for them to be able to have a place to be, and also to work with the congregation to continue to build this community that we are building, but in a pretty much kind of like a farm, so that we can have food for the congregation and a place and stuff like that. So we're working on that, and hopefully you guys, right, you already know, if you want to come over here, you'll have work, and it'll be you know, it will be simple because it will be going to, well, to the land, right, and being there with animals and eating that which we would produce. So that is something that we are working on at the moment. So hopefully you guys also well, at some point you guys can come, and if you want to stay, that would be wonderful. But anyways, so keep it in mind. So yeah, I'm saying that because we were just, actually, that's the reason why tonight I was late, because we were on a meeting about that. And now to read this again, yeah, it makes me want to tell you guys about it. So I'll continue. And when he opened the third seal, I heard a third living creature say, come and see. And I looked and saw a black horse, and he who sat on it holding a pair of scales in his hand. You know what's funny also? Because not only have we read the book of Yashar about the hunger in Mizraim and the hunger in Gerar, when Abraham went both places because of hunger. We read in the book of Kings about the famine that happened in the time of Eliyahu, and then the one in the time of Elishua. One that was 7 years, another one, the 3.5 years of no rain, all of that having to do with the 2 witnesses. And not only that, but I've been wanting to put out a song that we worked on it for like a couple months ago, but I haven't been able to mix it and master it. So I've been working on it like this past week after having worked on the videos. And interestingly enough, you know how Harmon and I were working on an album called The Seals. So we are on the third seal right now, and that's the song that is coming out. So I've been listening to it a lot, so I have this subject in my mind a lot. And yeah, you'll hear it hopefully tomorrow in the oh no, not tomorrow because Harmon still needs to record something. So yeah, hopefully next week you'll be listening to that song. So yeah. And I looked and saw a black horse, and he who sat on it holding a pair of scales in his hand. Scales. So we go back here, and you see how it says the scales by the seed, to falsify the scales. So you see how it mentions, Amos mentions scales, just like the third seal brings scales. Remember yesterday we read something that was also very similar, the wording to Revelation 6. That's why I went to Revelation 6 as well. We're reading Amos, which is the prophet that actually says that there will be hunger, and I think it's in this chapter, there will be hunger mainly for the word of Yahweh, but in general, there will be famine. And that is what we see here in the book of Revelation. So what Amos was prophesying was directly about this seal that we are seeing here. And I looked and saw a black horse, and he was sat on it holding a pair of scales in his hand, and I heard a voice in the midst of the four living creatures. So the voice came from the throne, saying, a measure of wheat for a denarius, and 3 measures of barley for a denarius, which is very expensive, and do not harm the oil and the wine. So this has a spiritual representation regarding the chosen few who won't be harmed. Also about the many and the few as wheat and barley, but in the simple sense, it's talking about how the essential foods will go up in price as they are at the moment, and that which is not essential but is used to not think about problems and all that, like wine, for instance, will be cheaper so that people will immerse themselves into, for instance, wine or oil, which also represents joy, or in the sense of what I was talking about, because it also represents the martyrs or the priests. So going back, hear these, you who are swallowing up the needy, to do away with the poor of the land. That's what they are doing now. They did something to decrease the population, something which I'm not allowed to speak about because they just keep deleting my our videos and channels. So I got to be careful. I'm thinking that even this that I'm saying could be a problem, because if I tell you guys what they are doing, they get mad. But it's I mean, they should be open about the fact that they don't like us to have free speech. So anyways, and which I find it hard to speak about it because I really want to talk about it because it needs to be said. So it's funny how they block those videos. They trying to shut people up. But if the things that they sell or even give away for free were working, there will be no need to shut anybody up, because those things would speak for themselves. But the fact that they block us and try to shut us up shows that we are actually right, and they are scared of people knowing. So yeah, like I have said, that confirms, right, us as a congregation of truth. But when it comes to us who really love these studies and everything, it is sad to lose some of them, because sadly they have deleted some of the most recent ones, which I had not backed up. So that has me pretty sad, but it's okay. Thankfully, we already have the knowledge, so it's all about spending a couple more hours doing the study again, so we can do that. Hear these, you who are swallowing up the needy, to do away with the poor of the land. So they are decreasing the population through what they have been doing, and now they are decreasing the amount of food that there is available, and they are inflating the economy to make it pop. So the economy will go down, there will be no food, and people will be sick, sadly, because of those three things that I just mentioned. It will be like a ball of snow that will continue to grow and grow and grow in a faster way each time. So then he says, saying, so right, this is what they say in order to do away with the poor of the land. When does the new month pass so that we sell grain, right? Because the first day of the month, they write new moon because that's how they translate month, or chodesh in Hebrew, which comes from chadash, which means new. That's why new is the only word that appears here like this, while moon is this way, because the actual word for moon is not in the scriptures. They put it because of their calendar, the Jewish people who have a moon calendar, a lunar calendar. So that's why they do this. But remember that the true calendar is not a lunar calendar. It has 364 days, so it is solar mainly, but it's connected to other details like the seasons. So there are 52 weeks, 364 days, 12 months of 30 days, and 4 of those months have an extra day, or 24-hour a whole day for the seasons to change. So every 3 months there's an extra day, and during that day the season changes, and that's why there are 364, because there are 360 in a circle, plus the 4 in which the sun doesn't change a degree because it is just changing seasons. So this is the true calendar. During the new month, or the beginning of the month, Yahweh tells us in scriptures to celebrate it, because every month Yahweh, just like he renews his mercies every morning, every month there is a renewal as well of energy, to put it in a certain way. Every month has a different type of energy that we need to focus on to work on ourselves and the world around us. So since it was a time to celebrate and to keep it similar to a Shabbat, then those who do not care really about Yahweh or about seeking his presence and so on and so forth, they would just be thinking all day during the Shabbat and during the new month about when will this end so that we can go and make more money? When will this Shabbat end so that we can go and pretty much do fraud, right? Because that's what they would do with these false scales. So that's why it says, when does the new month pass so that we sell grain, and the Shabbat so that we trade our wheat, to make the ephah small? So this is a contradiction right here, because the ephah is already, well, contradiction in the sense of what they are saying makes no sense, because an ephah is a measure, a unit of measuring. So it is already set. How can you say a small ephah? It's like saying a small mile or a large mile. A mile is a mile, right? It's a certain amount of, just like in meters, right? Which is in the rest of the world, 100 meters, or 1,000 meters, a kilometer. So, or in a liter, or whatever, it's already a measure. So you cannot make it small. If you make it small, that means you are taking away, and it is not truly a ephah. So to make the ephah small and the shekel large, right? So they make the amount that they sell small and the price larger. And that is what they do constantly. That's why, right, when we talk to our parents, they would talk about how cheap things were in their time. And if we were to talk to our grandparents, the amounts of money that they would spend for a field, for a house, for a car was nothing compared to what now it is. And it has to do with inflation. and in a way with the illusion of money, right? Because they just put in a paper what they claim it is worth. But if that has happened in just a couple generations, imagine thousands of years. So the shekel large, and to falsify the scales by deceit. Deceit, that's what they love. To buy the poor for silver and the needy for a pair of sandals. This is interesting because remember that Yahushua was sold as a slave for silver. He was sold for 30 pieces, right? To buy the poor for silver. Yahushua is the rich, but he became poor for our sins. He became a curse to give us a blessing. Also, it is said that he was found with the poor, but in his death with the rich, meaning regarding his death when he was given the tomb that Joseph of Arimathea had ready for himself, and he was a wealthy man. So regarding Mashiach, the word poor is used in the sense of the fact that he came to this poor reality and became one of us, a human, entered the flesh. All of that, the flesh, this reality is poverty. And he was sold for silver by Yehudah. And then the needy. Yahushua speaks about the last as one who doesn't have where to rest his head. The Son of Man does not have a place. The foxes have their places and the birds their nests and all of that, but the Son of Man does not have a place where he may rest his head. But Mashiach came as the stone for the last to rest his head. So the last was needy because he needed Mashiach. He needed the place of rest. He needed the pillow, right? That he, as Yaakov had that pillow made with a stone, and then he anointed that pillow or that stone to represent the Messiah, the anointed cornerstone. So the last needs the first to fulfill his part. Also, Yahweh speaking as the last in Isaiah 63, he says that he did not find anybody to save him. So he had to save himself. So he needed, as the last, he needs salvation. And that's why Yahweh himself saves himself by coming 2,000 years before and leaving salvation available for those who would come after. And also before, of course, right? Abraham and all of that. So, and the needy for a pair of sandals. Not only the word needy connects with the last, but also a pair of sandals. Why? Two reasons. Well, several, I'm sure, but I'm going to say two. Because remember that Joseph, who, like I said earlier, is an ancestor of the last. Joseph was sold also for silver, but that they used that silver to buy sandals because it was money that they received from selling their brother as a servant, as a slave. So they said, we cannot buy anything that we gain pleasure from. We need to buy something that we will step on. So that's why they bought sandals, knowing that what they did was not right. But the sandals, as we know in Ephesians, they represent the zeal for preaching the good news, because with the sandals you can walk everywhere to bring the good news to those whom you see around where you go walk. So the feet and the sandals represent the good news and the zeal to preach them. So the fact that they sold Joseph for sandals shows how the selling of Yahushua the first and the coming of the last as a prodigal son or as a slave is so that the world may receive the good news. the pair of sandals. Because the two witnesses as the sandals, because remember that the feet represent the end, the head, the beginning, Rosh, Reshit, head, beginning. The feet represent the end, like the feet of the statue that Nebuchadnezzar saw. The feet represent the last empire, the 10 toes, the 10 kings. So the sandals, in the positive sense, represent the good news that would be preached in the end times by the two witnesses, like the 2 feet. And that will be done by the 2 witnesses, given the true doctrine, which are the sandals, and then they will be killed for that salvation to take effect. So obviously, this is referring in general to people who are poor and needy. Those who are in power, they take advantage of them. And since that happens, Yahweh himself decided to come to this world and go through it to pay for them. So the world would reject him as a poor one who would be sold for silver by Yehudah, and the last as a needy one who will be given for a pair of sandals. And sell the chaff of the wheat. You see how in the third, it doesn't mention a person. So like I said, first and last, and then the harvest. Right? Came the first, then the last, and then the harvest will happen when the wheat, which are the chosen few, will be taken. In this sense, of course, they sell something that the people are not wanting. They want the wheat, not the chaff. Yahweh has sworn by the excellency of Yaakov, I shall never forget any of their works. Yahweh already swore that he will never forget. And remember that he says that he forgets, he forgives our sins. He will stop being angry after the end times come. He won't be angry ever again in eternity. Those are promises that he gives us, but he also promises that he won't forget all the evil that they did. That's why they will continue to pay eternally in the lake of fire, because he won't forget ever. Yahweh has sworn by the excellency of Yaakov, I shall never forget any of their works. Shall the land not tremble for this, and everyone mourn who dwells in it? Right? What is happening at the moment? The fact that, well, what they claim it is climate change or global warming, or that certain parts of the world are not given fruit, the land is not given anything anymore, or is weak. It all has to do with this. Shall the land not tremble for this, and everyone mourn who dwells in it? And all of it shall swell like the river, heave and subside like the river of Mizraim. This is wonderful and amazing for several reasons that confirm what I've been saying. And all of it shall swell like the river, heave and subside like the river of Mizraim. Obviously, he's talking about the Nile River. Verse 8. This is the last part because I think very interesting. And it shall rise up. Ve'alta. Ve'alta. Kula. Holy. As a flood. Just a moment. Kaor. As a flood from Yaor, flood, but the calf is the ass, as a flood. Kaor, which could be seen also as like the light. It's missing a letter, it would be a vav, but we could see this as the light, right? The light of Mashiach coming as a flood. Remember that or is light. So that's what I'm saying, that or is light. Kaor could be seen as the light of Yahushua, although he's referring to a flood, because remember that this world would be covered with the knowledge of Yahweh, like the sea is covered with water. So as a flood, and he shall be cast out, and he shall be cast out and drowned, as by the flood of Egypt. So you see how it is a little bit different here, because this could be referring, well, I'll explain what I was going to explain a few moments ago. I'll explain it afterwards. In this translation, we can see that when the two witnesses will be killed, then, as it is written, when they say peace and security, then sudden destruction will come upon them. So when they kill the two witnesses, they will think that they will have peace, but sudden destruction will come. And he shall rise up wholly as a flood. Remember that Yahweh said that the coming of the Son of Man would be like the days of Noah, when the flood came and took everybody. The last is like Noah. When he is killed, the flood will come, meaning the plagues, the last 7 plagues, and therefore the fire. And he shall be cast out. The false Messiah will manifest after the two witnesses are killed and resurrected. When the witness like Moshe goes up, he will take Lucifer out of heaven. He will kick out Lucifer from heaven, as it says here, and he shall be cast out and drowned, as by the flood of Egypt. Just like the Pharaoh, or like the Egyptians, were drowned in the Sea of Reeds during the Exodus. And I say that because it's mentioned in flood, just flood, like the flood that came over them after the walls, when the water separated, came down over the army of the Egyptians that were coming after Israel. So this, the way translated here, would refer to the death of the two witnesses, the last plagues coming right after the Satan, the mighty one of this world, is kicked out of heaven and comes to this world to be eventually drowned in the lake of fire, for instance, just like the Egyptians were drowned in the Sea of Reeds. But what I was also saying that I find quite interesting, okay, it says, and shall the land not tremble for this, and everyone mourn who dwells in it, and it shall swell like the river. If it talks about a river, it will be the Nile River. The Nile River was an idol for the people of Egypt. They saw the Nile as a god that would give them food, because when it would swell, then the water would cover the fields and they would be able to grow food and eat. So to them, it was key when the time came for the river to swell and give them food, pretty much. As we see in the scriptures, when the patriarchs, when the chosen would go to a certain place and there was no water, all of a sudden the water would come, or it would swell, and everybody would enjoy that water thanks to the righteous one who was around. As we see several times, the righteous ones go to a well of water. Yaakov, Abraham, Eliezer for Yitzhak to get Rivka, Moshe to find Sephora, and the water would always rise up. When Joseph went to Egypt, it is believed that he came to Egypt either during the time when the river was swelling up, or because of him, it swelled. So they saw a connection, regardless if it was because of the time, which Yahweh would have made it happen, made it happen anyways, like to make him come during that time so that people would notice the difference. By Joseph coming to Egypt and the Nile River growing, they saw a connection, and they said, we need to keep this guy here because he brings prosperity. That's why he was the one in charge for the 7 years of famine that came to Egypt and to the world. And he was the one in charge of giving food to everybody. So there is a descendant of Joseph who will give food to everybody who wants it, but spiritual food when the famine talked about in the book of Amos happens. So I find interesting that it is being this is being said here, because if we go to Genesis 41, let me just find the Hebrew. So here where it says bow the knee, and he had Joseph ride in the second chariot. Joseph is the ancestor of the last. The last referring to when Yahweh says, I am the first and the last. So since he only says first and last, we could also say first and second, right? Because he would come twice. That's first and last, so the last is the second. So that's why he had him riding the second chariot, because Joseph's descendant comes second. Mashiach comes first, right? So he had him riding the second chariot, which he had. And they cried out before him, bowed the knee. And he set him over all the land of Mizraim. And he set him over all the land. So he became king over the land, pretty much. Mizraim, which represents the whole world. And Pharaoh, which would be as Yahweh through Mashiach, Yahushua the first, said to Joseph the last, I am Pharaoh, and without a word from you, let no man lift his hand or foot in all the land of Mizraim. Without a word, this word is added because it's saying without you, pretty much you speaking, without your voice, for the last is the voice, let no man lift his hand or foot in all the land of Mizraim. So everything that would go down, everything that would happen because of the word or the command of Joseph. So Joseph as the head and Mizraim as the body, and Pharaoh as the thought, in the sense of Yahweh through his Ruach acting in the last, so that the last can rule over the earth. And then it continues, and it's very amazing chapter, but I'm just gonna leave it here for a moment. So bow the knee, verse 43. We come to this in Hebrew, and it says abrek, right here. Abrek, that is bow the knee. So you see it right there. Let me take it to the translator. Abrek. They yeshiva student. So yeah, they're not putting it as they should, but it doesn't matter. You just saw the translation from the Torah, right? Abrek. I'll show it again just in case you forgot the word, the letters that are used. You see, Aleph, Bet, Resh, Kaf. Aleph, Bet, Resh, Kaf. In fact, if I take the Aleph, you see, they put it as Ni. So you can see. Also, we could say Barach, or from here we get Baruch, which is blessed. Birchaim is knees. So that's why just one is Ni, right? So, because if I put this, knees, right? But I'll just make it singular and add the Aleph, which, like I said earlier, it is the letter to conjugate the verb in the first person future. So everybody had to bow the knee. That was the point. Abrech, right? Bow the knee. Is an order to bow the knee. In this case, it is since it is as an order, the Aleph will be used as in a different way, not like I just said. But the point I want to make, other than the fact that it means bow the knee, and that could be also translated as bless. So it will be like bless him, give him blessings, pray for him. Abrech. Also, in Hebrew, there is something that is done in order to find deeper meaning in words, and it is to change a letter for another letter that has a similar sound. So all letters that have a similar sound can be changed in order to get more understanding of the word, or deeper understanding of the teaching that Yahweh is giving us in scriptures. So abrech, this is the kaf. The other letter that has this sound of kaf or similar is the kuf, right? Kaf, kuf. So if we change the kaf for a kuf, we get the star Sirius. That is abrach. So I say this not only because I love this name, but because abrach, since in Hebrew is Sirius, connects with Joseph, because the Egyptians would worship Isis as the star Sirius, and they believed that it was because of Sirius that the Nile River would swell. So when Sirius would come up in the horizon after a year of, well, not a whole year, but during the calendar, Sirius would be present, but then it would disappear, and then it would come up again on the horizon, and that would be the time for the Nile River to grow, and they would see a connection. Sirius is the one bringing water. Sirius is the one that prepares the river to give us food in the fields. So now Joseph comes to Egypt, and the Nile River grows. So they see a connection, and interestingly enough, they are saying abrach, right? Abrech, which could be seen also as abrach, as saying, bless him and bow the knee, for he is king, and he brought water, right? So now with all of that I just said, and this connection here, and what they said regarding Joseph, who is an ancestor of the last, let's read this verse again. And all of it shall swell like the river, heave and subside like the river of Mizraim, right after everything that we've seen already. So we connect with the time when Joseph went to Mizraim. So we connect with the time when the last would come to the world. Reason why this will happen, obviously, because of what we just read here, is referring to the flood that will come to destroy them after the death of the two witnesses. And it shall be in that day, declares the sovereign Yahweh, that I shall cause the sun to go down at noon, and shall darken the earth on a day of brightness. So this will be interesting to see, to experience, if Yahweh allows us to be around. Maybe not because of what I just mentioned, but this could be referring to the sixth seal, which we know will be catastrophic. Seems to be the time when the north will become the south and the south will become the north. And it shall be in that day, declares the sovereign Yahweh, that I shall cause the sun to go down at noon. Remember that when they killed Mashiach, at noon, the sun disappeared. So they were worried because they said, oh no, we have to do something because the afternoon came and we need to prepare for the feast. So when noon came, because they put him on the cross at 9 a.m., the third hour, at noon, the sun darkened. So just like it happened with Mashiach, Yahweh will make it happen again, although obviously this verse can refer to the death of Mashiach, right? Obviously. I'm just saying because of the rest of connections previous that we just saw previously. We can see it as something that will also happen in our time, as we see in the sixth seal, for instance, that the sun will be as sackcloth. That I shall cause the sun to go down at noon. Now, the fact that it said, well, let me see if it says go down, literally, verse 9. I will make the sun come, but Saharim, at noon, at half the day. But it says come, and it refers, well, they're translating it as coming down, because it's like saying when he got to the place where he was going. So when he got to the place where he was going, we already lost sight of it. So in a way, it could be translated as I was saying, the sun still being there, but not being able, like the people not being able to see it, as when it becomes sackcloth. So that was verse 9. And it shall be in that day, declares the sovereign Yahweh, that I shall cause the sun to go down at noon, or to come at noon, referring to coming down, but it doesn't say the word down. That's what I'm trying to explain. It doesn't say the word down, it just says the word come, getting to the place where it was going. Obviously, the sun doesn't stop, but from our point of view, when it's night, it already got to where it was going. And when it's morning, it came back to continue, right, on its way to wherever it's going, in the horizon, pretty much. So, that I shall cause the sun to go down at noon, and shall darken the earth on a day of brightness. Remember that the witness like Moshe comes like the son of righteousness, Malachi 4:2. So his coming would be a day of brightness, for he teaches about Yahushua, who is the light. But when they kill him, then all of a sudden, the earth will be darkened, and shall darken the earth on a day of brightness. Of course, as we've seen on the sixth seal, or even the trumpets, things will happen that some will experience on earth, that perhaps there's a bright day, literally, and on that day there's a plague, and all of a sudden they cannot see anything, even though it may be noon. So that would fulfill this verse, no doubt. And I'm sure it will happen, because we see several things like this in the book of Revelation. And obviously because it is written. I'm just saying, because this first part, we can take it as already fulfilled with Mashiach. Even this, with what I just said, but like I said, the last comes as the son of righteousness. When they killed him, they darkened the earth. And shall turn your feasts into mourning, your feasts or festivals. I don't like festival because it is possible that it comes from, and I believe that's why I don't like it, a feast for Baal, right? With the B is not that noticeable, but a festival would be a feast for Baal, festival, right? So that's why I don't use festival, I use feast. So, and shall turn your feasts into mourning. It says yours, so that means it's talking to those who follow a different calendar than the one that Yahweh sent. Also, even if they have the true calendar, when they celebrate the feasts, not according to what Yahweh told us, but according to their commandments of men, as some do. But most of the people who have commandments of men do not have the true calendar. So mainly refers to the fact that they celebrate all their feasts, for they don't have the true days of the true feasts. Plus, we know the people of the world, even those who are descendants of Israel, many of them still celebrate festivals. They celebrate the feast for Baal instead of for Yahweh. Into mourning. So when they were supposed to feast, they will be sad. They will lose a lot of people, sadly. So they will be mourning on times that they would be feasting. Remember that the chosen few will be taken during a feast. So we will be mourning for those who stay. If the chosen few disappear from this earth on a feast of Shemini Atzeret, and the many will die during that time, but 30 days. Then those festivals, those feasts, I'm sorry, see, those feasts will become mourning for family members. And obviously, well, yeah, for everybody that loses someone during that time of plagues. And shall turn your feasts into mourning and all your songs into lamentation. Many people, well, I don't know, I shouldn't say many because I don't know that many know about my music, but some people complain about my music because of the fact that I'm I guess too clear about what scripture says, and they get scared, or they think I'm trying to condemn when I'm trying to awake. And like I always say, if you already know the truth and you're following the truth, then nobody that knows the truth and follows Messiah should worry about the bad parts of the prophecies or the bad parts that I mentioned in the songs. Because I'm not referring to you or to them. I'm referring to those whom Yahweh is referring to here also. The same thing. And I say that because my songs, I guess some are of lamentation because they talk about the sad things that are coming, but I guess not in a lamentation way. Like I'm not lamenting, right? I'm not crying or anything like that. But it is sad what I say, right? It is sad what I speak about in many of my songs. That's my point of lamentation. And they want me to change and although obviously I'm trying to make all types of music in the sense of still hip hop, but my point is to praise or to enjoy in the sense of moving your head and thinking and also analyzing the lyrics. All of that I like to do in my songs, but I get complaints because of the fact of the genre that I use, and because it is not like, let's just put it this way, Christian music, right? And you see how it says here, and all your songs into lamentation, because they focus on things, their songs focus on things that, although I understand they are hoping to praise the Almighty, although they don't praise the Almighty because they call him a different name. Even if they did, they are focusing on emotions. They are focusing on feelings, not on what is happening, not on what's coming, not about learning. It's all about singing and enjoying the song, right? That's why a lot of people go to church, because they want to sing and dance, and they don't go to the club anymore. So they want to feel set apart or holy, and so they go to a church to do the dancing and the jumping and the clapping, but they're not really getting into the lyrics, or the lyrics are not really getting into the scriptures, which I find to be an issue. So I say all of that because their songs are focusing on feelings, on feeling good, on jumping and dancing. So that's why this verse refers to how their songs will become lamentation. It is a time for us to repent and to pray, to ask Yahweh for mercy. But they are trying to have the time of their lives in the sense that they are not focusing on the doctrine and on their deeds. They are just focusing on the mercy that Yahweh showed us. So they are enjoying the fact that they believe to have the rapture. I actually just heard a Christian, I don't know what to call it, pastor, or maybe I think it was it was a her. So it was a female, and I don't know, she might believe to be a prophet or something like that. I don't know if she is, because I just heard it once. But she was talking about, she was pretty much telling the people not to worry, even though the rapture should have happened already. So I was surprised a little bit to already find people who are Christians who are noticing that the rapture should have happened already according to their doctrines. So there are some who are starting to see that the doctrine of the rapture is not as infallible as they thought it was, or as true as they thought it was, because things that are happening right now, they didn't expect to be happening before the rapture. So sadly, a lot of people are expecting something that won't happen as they expected. So when it won't happen, then their songs of singing, their songs of rejoicing and dancing and jumping and clapping and having feelings and emotions will turn into the bad emotions that they are trying to avoid. They're trying to avoid being sad. I understand. Obviously, everybody does, but they try to avoid the truth, because the truth makes them sad. What? That this world will be over, that things will be on fire, that people will die, that people will pay. They don't want that. They don't want to have to process those feelings. So just like a lot of people, they don't think about death. They're afraid of it. They don't think about it. They don't think about it, thinking that if they don't think about it, it won't happen. Obviously, it will happen. And it will be worse for those who never thought about it. And that is my point here. And that is also my point with my songs. People need to realize time is short. The prophecies are real. And the only way to not go through that which you are afraid of is to actually fear Yahweh and do what he says. So, I shall turn your feasts into mourning. And in that sense, their feasts could be said to be festivals. And all your songs into lamentation. And bring sackcloth on all loins. That's why the two witnesses will wear sackcloth in a spiritual sense. They will wear sackcloth to preach for 3.5 years. So this actually fits what I was just saying. And I don't know how to put it, not to. They are avoiding this, so they will have to go through it. If we focus on this that is coming for the world, we will change our deeds and Yahweh will take care of us. And we will be singing a song, but the song of Moshe and the Lamb, as Revelation 15 says. The song like the one that Moshe sang after going through the Sea of Reeds. The two witnesses wore sackcloth during the first 3.5 years. And that's why they will hate them, because they will make everybody know what is coming. So they wear sackcloth because they are wearing the clothing that is worn when there is mourning or tribulation. So they will be mourning as they preach through their teaching. And people will not like that because they are expecting songs of singing and jumping and dancing and all that. I already said songs of singing, like it wasn't like that, of dancing and all of that they do. And they will afterwards have to turn those songs into lamentation and bring sackcloth. Why? Because they did not listen to the lamentation brought by those who wore sackcloth for 3.5 years. And bring sackcloth on all loins and baldness on every head. Baldness, which is also connected to the sackcloth and to mourning. People would either pull out their hairs from the pain that they were feeling, or they would shave. So, or both sometimes, like they would just pull some hairs out and then shave. And that also fits with what we just saw not long ago with Elishua, whom they called bald, and he made 2 bears come out and destroy 42 youths, pretty much. So the 2 beasts, they call him bald because he represents the one who comes wearing sackcloth. And everything that I just said and a little bit more. And bring sackcloth on all loins and baldness on every head. And shall make it like mourning for an only son, and its end like a day of bitterness, confirming the death of the last, the witness like Moshe. This also is what Yahweh said to Abraham when he told him to go and sacrifice his only son, his only begotten son, referring to Yitzhak. even though he had Ishmael with Hagar, but Yitzhak was the one of the promise. So it's only his beloved son. And Yitzhak was a representation of Yahushua HaMashiach, who would be sacrificed for our sins. That's why Abraham told Yitzhak, Yahweh will provide a lamb, and Yahweh provided that lamb being Mashiach, who came to die as the only son of Yahweh. The last becomes one with the first. Yahweh told the last that he will make him a firstborn. And also, obviously, this verse refers to the pain that they will feel. The world will feel so much pain in the end times as a parent would feel if they were to lose their only son. There is no greater pain than that, I would think, to be honest. Try to think of another pain that would be so strong. And I think that would be the worst pain. And which is interesting because that shows how love works. Because that is not a pain, a physical pain, right? It's a pain of not being powerful enough to keep your son alive. For instance, a pain of losing that which you loved over everything, even your own soul or yourself, right? So I cannot even imagine, and I do believe it is the worst pain, and that's why I always mention it here. But it refers to the fact that he is coming as the last, and they will kill him, and that would bring that pain to the world. And shall make it like mourning for an only son, and its end like a day of bitterness. And its end like a day of bitterness. Remember that this also connects with the Exodus, the last plague, when Yahweh killed the firstborn of every Egyptian household, except the houses of the Israelim who had the blood of the lamb on their doors or doorposts. This is verse 10. Sackcloth on all heads, karcha, boldness, yachid, as the only son, ve'acharita, hayomat, bitterness, day of bitterness. So continuing, verse 11, see, days are coming, declares the sovereign Yahweh. Inei yamim baim neum Adonai Yahweh. Behold, days are coming, declares Adonai Yahweh, that I shall send a hunger in the land. This is the verse that I was saying, I've been saying this whole time. The days are coming, declares Yahweh, Adonai Yahweh, that I shall send a hunger in the land, not a hunger for bread. That is quite interesting. That is something that even though it's right there in the middle, most people miss or don't understand. Because if they did, they will realize that the doctrine they're following is not the true doctrine, no matter if they were born in that doctrine. That means nothing, but tradition and experience makes it feel like everything. Just like the prophecies about the apostasy that would happen in the end. You see how it says, not a hunger for bread. So not hunger for bread. That is the only hunger that people know about or realize that exists. But Yahweh, like I said earlier, gave us everything that is visible to understand that which is invisible. So Yahweh allowed hungers to happen in the past. And even us, we have felt hunger at some point in life, even when we fast, to understand the need for food, and also the fact that not only by bread shall men live, but by every word that comes out of the mouth of Yahweh. And that is the point here. There will be a hunger, not for bread. People will have bread, but they won't have the bread of life. So their souls will hunger. And it's sad because that hunger is already in the world, but most people don't even realize that they are hungry, that their souls are hungry. They know it, but they have no idea how to satisfy that hunger. That's my point. They feel hungry because they feel empty, right? Every body in the world feels emptiness, and they are trying to fill that emptiness with money, with power, with fame, with followers, with likes, with whatever, because they are hungry, but they don't know what is the true bread of life. So, like I also said many times, there will be famine because we just saw it in Revelation 3. There will be hunger because we're seeing it everywhere in scriptures. So that is sad, but it's even worse that people will be hungry for the word of Yahweh and they won't even realize it, or they will die of that hunger, spiritually speaking. So this is the hunger mentioned in the third seal of Revelation that we saw earlier. The days are coming, declares the Adonai Yahweh, that I shall send hunger in the land, not a hunger for bread, nor a thirst for water, but for hearing the words of Yahweh. So just like Joseph, who has been present in this chapter through a couple words, Joseph became the king of the world in Mizraim, even though he was second to Pharaoh. He was the one who gave food to the whole world. He would sell everybody food. And when people had no more money to buy food, they became slaves to Pharaoh. So pretty much the last, through his teaching, will make the people come to Yahweh and become servants of Yahweh. The last, through his teaching, will make Yahweh become the true owner of the whole world, like Joseph did for Pharaoh during his time. So a descendant of Joseph comes in the end times as a slave, meaning prodigal son, the story of the prodigal son. He realizes who he is. Yahweh takes him to teach the bread of life and the water of life to the world. Just like Joseph did with food, now the last will do with the words of Yahweh, because of this verse right here. The days are coming, declares Adonai Yahweh, that I shall send a hunger in the land, not a hunger for bread, nor a thirst for water, but for hearing the words of Yahweh. And they shall wander from sea to sea, right? Nowadays, people can do that through the internet, for instance, but people will do it in the literal sense. They will travel the world looking how to satisfy that hunger. They shall wander from sea to sea, and from north to east. North to east, they shall diligently search, seeking the word of Yahweh, but they shall not find it. Yahweh won't allow them to find it. It's interesting that it says from north to east, which is the same route that the beast will take. The little horn of Daniel will go from north to east. Israel is in the east. People go to the east, which they call the Holy Land, looking for peace, but they found, well, I went, and yeah, you don't find peace there. You find the opposite, right? And it's on the news all the time and all of that, but I mean spiritual peace. And you see idolatry, you see control, you see weapons, you see Muslim symbols, you see mean faces, etc. Prohibitions, signs forbidding stuff, fences all over the place. On the other side of the fences, mines, etc. So very, very sad place. It was the most beautiful. Yahweh chose it, but because of the sin, it is what it is nowadays. And Yahweh will change it back to the way it was. But my point is that by saying from north to east, that shows that these are people that are like the beast. They go in the same route. But also, without thinking about the route that the beast takes to try and control Jerusalem, these can be seen also as the fact that Yahweh mentions the north as the place where wickedness comes from. Well, wickedness comes from the north. The east is where the temple is. So the wicked will go even to Jerusalem trying to find bread, but they won't, because Mashiach already came to the east and they rejected him. So now the last comes to the nations, where people won't look for food, and food will be in the least expected place. Like when Yahushua came and they said, what good has come from Nazareth? Go and see if there's a prophet that has ever come from it, from Galilee. And they were 5 prophets, very important prophets that came from there. So that showed their wickedness, their racism, their xenophobia, and a bunch of other things that they had, which they nowadays use a lot to discriminate and to divide the people. So when they shall wander from sea to sea and from north to east, they shall diligently search, seeking the word of Yahweh, but they shall not find it. And remember, the word of Yahweh, according to Revelation 19:13, is the name of the Son, Yahushua HaMashiach. Revelation 19:13, and his name is the word of Yahweh. So they will be seeking the name of Yahushua, the name of the Messiah, and they won't find it. And I'm not saying necessarily that they will seek literally for the name. They will seek for the bread, and they won't find it, because they will receive a different type of food, a different name, a different word, a different doctrine. And that's why they will continue to search from sea to sea, from north to east, because everywhere they will go, they will find lies, deceit, religion, falsehood, apostasy, etc. They shall not find it. Well, let me see these 3, Jeremiah 5:13. And the prophets have become wind, and the word is not in them. The word is not in them. The prophets of the world have become wind. They're just a ruach, not the ruach HaKodesh, just ruach. And the word, meaning Yahushua, the Messiah, the true name, is not in them. Thus shall be done to them. Therefore, thus said Yahweh. It continues. Let me see. The other one was Hosea 8:12. I have written for him numerous matters of my Torah. They were regarded as strange. This is wonderful. Well, it's sad, but I mean, an amazing verse to read and see happening in real time. Because when you tell a Christian who is supposed to believe in the scriptures as absolute truth, you explain to them a matter of scriptures of Torah, they regard it as strange. To them, it's strange because they have been taught lies, because they haven't been taught to study scripture. They haven't been taught how to read the scriptures. So they regard it as strange. Oh, no, that's strange. That's weird. Just because they don't get it, or just because they didn't get it from a pastor that they respect or follow. So they regard it as strange. Oh, that's evil. That's wicked. That's me. That's satanic. That's this. That's that. That's Kabbalah. That's whatever. Because they do not regard the Torah. They actually regard it as strange. I have written for him numerous matters of my Torah. They were regarded as strange. The other one, Ezekiel 34:3-10. That's a lot of verses, and that will take a while, but he's pretty much speaking about, obviously, the same that he's saying here regarding the end times and how people would not find the word of Yahweh in the end. In that day, which refers to the end times, in that day, the beautiful maidens and strong young men shall faint from thirst. The strong will faint. So imagine the weak. They won't make it. In that day, the beautiful maidens and strong young men shall faint from thirst, because they do not have the water of life. Yahushua is the water of life, and we can do all things through Mashiach who strengthens us. But the strong, by not having the water of life, will faint. Those swearing by the guilt of Shomron, which represent the many, who say, as your mighty one lives, O Dan, and as the way of Beersheba lives, and they shall fall and never rise again. So they even swear by the guilt of Shomron, because of the guilt, the sin of the many, who say, as your mighty one lives, O Dan. Interesting that it says, as your mighty one lives, O Dan. But when we look at the book of Revelation, Dan is taken out of the 12 tribes. He doesn't appear among the 12 tribes that are chosen as the 144,000. Why? Because the mighty one of Dan is not the true mighty one. The mighty one of Dan ended up being the serpent, the enemy. So that's why his name is taken out of the 12 tribes, even though descendants of Dan can become of another tribe through Yahushua HaMashiach. But they won't be of the tribe of Dan. Dan will disappear, as we see in Revelation 7. And if we go to Genesis 49, and this is amazing, because remember I mentioned that I'm coming out with a new song. Oh, well, I mentioned the new song with Harmon, but there's another song that I already finished it, but actually I have to do something tonight for it to come out tomorrow. I'll try to premiere tomorrow on the Des Programa, if Yahweh allows, and it's called the Horse's Heels, and it is based on Genesis 49:17, which is the verse I want to show right here. And he says, Dan is a serpent by the way, an adder by the path, that bites the horse's heels, so that its rider falls backward. You'll hear the song. It's based on this verse, like I said. Is the song for the 9th month, which is that of what is called normally Sagittarius. Sagittarius was actually referring to the man who comes riding a white horse with a bow and a crown on Revelation 6. And this refers to the fact that somebody from Dan will have something to do with the death of the witness like Moshe, by being a serpent by the way. Yahushua is the way. So there will be a serpent by the way who will pretty much, I repeat, have something to do or will be the one who will bring the death to the two witnesses, mainly the rider of the white horse. So Dan is a serpent, a viper. That's why, as your mighty one lives, O Dan, and as the way of Beersheba lives, Yahushua is the way of the Father, the way of Yahweh. In this case, the way of Beersheba would be referring to another way. And my point is, Yahushua is the way of Yahweh. A lot of people claim to have the way of the Almighty, but they claim the way is Jesus. That's not the way. It is like somebody asks for the street where you live so that they can go to you, and you say a different name. Obviously, they won't ever find your house, right? If you live in the house of Yahushua, in the Yahushua lane, you wouldn't say, okay, so you come to Jesus lane and I'll be right there at the corner, right? They won't find it, or they will go somewhere else. So they not only praise the mighty one of Dan, which is a serpent, but also the Messiah of Beersheba, because mighty one and the way as Yahweh is our mighty one, and his way is Yahushua, the Son. So they praise another mighty one, who is a serpent, and another way, the false Messiah. Beersheba means the well of the seven. It's interesting that the end times will last 7 years. And their well, their well will be dried up, because Yahweh will bring hunger and thirst for the true word of Yahweh, for the bread of life and the water of life. And they will look in the well and won't find water. In their Messiah, they won't find life. Even though they say, as the way of Beersheba lives, they won't find life in those 7 years in the well that they have dug, pretty much, the apostasy, the false doctrine. And this also connects, remember when Yahushua in Yahuhanan chapter 4 meets with a Shomroni, right? You see here Shomrom, right? With the woman, Shomroni, who had several husbands, and she realizes that Yahushua is the Messiah. And he says that he has better water than that which she was taken from the well, that Yaakov himself had dug, like she said. Also, you're greater than Yaakov, the patriarch. So you see how it mentions Shomrom, the mighty one of Dan, a serpent, and the way of Beersheba, a well, because Yahushua is the well of life. He is the way, but they worship another one. During those 7 years, they will have a different water from that well that will dry up, and they will lose the way. And they shall fall and never rise again, because they claim to love the Most High, but they don't. They actually love Satan. And that's why they shall fall and never rise again. And I'm not even talking about the many. If so, I will be referring to the wicked ones among the many, because there are many who will die and resurrect for righteousness. Yes, but there are way more who will die and not resurrect for righteousness, just for condemnation. And of those, which are a lot, many will have claimed to believe in the Most High. They will claim to have been good people and all of that. But Yahweh knows each person, and each person will be judged by their work. And that's how this chapter ends.